Oh, sorry about that. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to a brand new episode of For the Love of Humankind. As always, I am your host, Jeff. You can find me on... I don't even know where you can find me anymore. And that's actually kind of our topic for today. I was just scrolling through my phone, really looking at nothing. And the reason being is because I have given up social media. And it's really interesting because a lot of what I do in content creation relies on social media. And so I have found that creating content has been very, very difficult without social media. But that aside, I've actually noticed a lot of great things since quitting social media. And I'm really excited to kind of talk about the reason that I went this direction, the reason that I think I will continue to go in this direction, and really just talk about, is there a potential for a social media less world? So, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of For the Love of Humankind. Awesome. Welcome back again. Brand new episode, talking about social media, talking about this revolution. I don't know if it's a revolution. It's a revolution in my world. That I have had since quitting social media a couple weeks ago. So really, I'm on 2 weeks social media free. And frankly, it's been great. Now, I think I should define what I mean by social media, because I think that there are still platforms that I use that people could describe as social media, but I still don't use those all that often, because I don't spend a lot of time going through and scrolling on those platforms. So the biggest things that I gave up for social media, and I deleted all of social media off of my phone: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I still have Snapchat, but I don't really consider Snapchat to be social media. I mean, I guess in the definition of social media, you could describe it as that. But for me, it's like, I don't scroll through Snapchat. Like, I don't just spend hours on Snapchat. Like, I'll snap my friends and have conversations through there, but I don't really see it as like, okay, I can just limitlessly scroll through Snapchat. The other things that I still utilize, YouTube, because I get a lot of my information from YouTube, and Twitch. Those can be described as social media. I don't use any of that on my phone. So the only time that I use like YouTube or Twitch is when I'm on my computer. Really, like, especially when I'm not working. Like, that is what I'm on. And I really utilize it because I don't have social media. I watch content creators that talk about news, that talk about current events. That way, like, I'm still being able to get that information that typically I would get from, like, Twitter, because of the people that I follow. But those aside, deleted everything off of my phone. And the reason being is that I was finding that I was, one, spending so much time on social media during a day, especially TikTok at night, Twitter throughout the day, Like I would get distracted from the things that I was doing because I would see a notification pop up and I would be like, okay, well, I got to respond to this. Oh, okay, notification, I got to read this, or I got to look at this, or I got to watch this. And I am one of those individuals who is very, very prompt with like responding to things. And so like if you like text me, if you send me like a message, like I'm probably gonna look at it right away and then respond. And then the other person usually takes like 3 hours to respond after that, because yeah, that's usually how it goes. But anyway, so I was finding myself looking at my phone a lot, and the week before I decided to delete social media, I think my screen time average was about 4.5 hours a day. That's when I was awake. 4.5 hours while I was awake during the day, which is a long time and a lot of time that I could have spent doing other things. And so that was one decision, or one reason that I decided to delete social media. Another reason is I felt stressed and anxious going on social media, mostly because a lot of what we see on social media is a lot of negativity. You know, the world is not in a great place. This country is not in a great place. I mean, it really hasn't been in a great place for quite some time. But to go on social media and see these things constantly instead of like focusing on what's taking place right in front of me in the present, like I was noticing a huge difference in my mental health. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and how research correlates to that here in a little bit, but that my mental health was not doing great. The other thing that I did, and I recently reinstalled them, but I deleted dating apps because one of the things that I noticed too was I was finding myself having super, super low self-esteem, not feeling like I was good enough, not feeling like I was going to get any matches, not feeling like anybody wanted to spend time on me. And that on top of everything from the other social media, it just kept compiling, and it just like weighed super, super heavily, and medication and therapy can only do so much. And so I took it into my own hands to hop off of these things for a bit. So I'm 2 weeks in. My original goal was to do a month, but I could honestly see myself extending that length and maybe never going back on social media because of what I've seen over the last couple of weeks. Now, I know social media is a huge thing for a lot of people, right? It's a way to connect with people that, you know, that aren't around them, or friends that they've met across the world, you know, or stress relief. I know, you know, people that content create like need to use social media to be able to send out their content, right? And that's one of the things that I've noticed is 2 weeks ago, when I posted the second half of my conversation with Franklin and Robbie, did not post that anywhere on social media, right? And Franklin and Robbie themselves, days later, were like, "Oh, you have a new podcast?" And I was like, "Yep, it's the second half of our conversation." They were like, "Oh, well, I didn't even know." And I was like, "Well, that's because I didn't post it on social media," right? So it's interesting to see that one outlet kind of requires other outlets to be able to promote those things. And did I take a hit? I don't know, doing that, but I don't have a lot of subscribers at this point. So I don't know that would have changed that much. So I know why people use social media. I know why I use social media. I like to mindlessly scroll through things and find things that are funny or find things that are informative, or follow my favorite bands and the cryptic shit that they're doing. And there's a lot of reasons, right? But at the beginning of this year, I stopped using Facebook as much. The only thing I use on Facebook now is Facebook Marketplace, because it's super, super great way to sell things. But I stopped using Facebook. And the primary reason that I stopped using Facebook is because during the election time and in November and even into December, even last year when BLM was really at the precipice of things, I found myself getting in heated debates with family, with other people that are in my life or were in my life, and using that platform as a way to debate and defend, I don't think was a great use, right? Because you can't tell tone inflection through text or through writing very, very well. You also cannot put an emphasis on points, right? You can't just assume that people are going to read what you wrote, or read it completely and think about it before they write their next novel of an argument. And so I found myself in quite a bit of fallout, I think, with some of my family. And, my family will always be there. But I think that there is a piece of, I don't know if it's like mistrust or like whatever that looks like now. Haven't really talked to them much about it, but I found myself in a very negative place after that. And so I was like, you know what? I don't want to be a keyboard hero and sit behind a computer and not have these conversations in person. I don't want to attack somebody because I'm not able to understand or hear their tone inflection in the things that they're saying, right? There are a lot of trolls on the internet. A lot of people that will say shit just to get a reaction out of people. And it may not be things that they actually believe. And so I wanted to remove myself from that area. And that was huge. Facebook's dying anyway. It's been dead. I don't know. Facebook has never been the same since Farmville was on it. My mom used to play that all the time. But anyway, so remove myself from Facebook. So cutting social media out of my life is not something that's extremely new. And the realm of Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, it is new. I was on Twitter all the time. I was on TikTok all the time. Going through Instagram, I'd be scrolling, and I'd be like, damn, there are a lot of good-looking people out in the world. And I don't think I'm one of them. So I found myself in this like shell that I never used to be in. My self-esteem has never been great, to be fair, but it just kept getting worse. Like the older I get, the more I'm like, shit, I'm running out of time to do things and running out of time to do whatever, right? And I found myself actually feeling more depressed and more lonely being on social media. And I think the reason is because people on social media always portray, I should say a majority of people always portray the high points in their lives, right? So when we are scrolling through, specifically Instagram, you know, all you see is people like on vacation, people on a boat, people eating this, people eating that, people doing this, right? And it never highlights the low points in people's lives. So we're consistently getting influxed with all of these things of like, God, why isn't my life like this? Why did they get to do this? Like, do they even work? Like, all of these things that subconsciously you're consuming, right? And your mind is working in a sense of like, hey, why can't you do that? Or hey, let's get to this point. Or hey, you'll never make it there, right? Like all of these things that your mind is running through. Gotta love anxiety, gotta love the way that your mind works. So it's not great. Like social media is great and not great at the same time. And so I talked a little bit about my overall usage right before I deleted everything off my phone. I was sitting at like the week before I did was sitting at 4.5 hours a day. And so one of the things I want to do to prepare for this episode was really try and find some research and some facts about the average person, right? And how much time an average person spends on social media, what that could look like moving forward, and stuff like that. So I'm going to go through some statistics that are provided from different research groups, from Statista to Broadband Search to Data Reportal. All of these areas have provided some of this research. So on average, a person spends 145 minutes every day on social media. That's 145 minutes. Let's see. I could literally... No, I couldn't watch that. I could probably, sit through and watch Avengers Endgame in that time. That's actually probably, I think it's longer than that, but just for an example. So you could spend 145 minutes watching a movie uninterrupted. Or doing other things, like being active. On top of that, people spend an average of 6 years and 8 months of their life on social media. Like this statistic blew my mind. Like 6 years and 8 months. That is a long fucking time and a huge portion of your life. People are like, oh, 6 years, that's nothing. That's like up till kindergarten. Yeah, well, there's a lot of learning and growing in that time span. And 6 years and 8 months, you could spend that amount of time doing a crazy amount of things that are going to benefit yourself. Again, if social media is your job, and if you're a content creator, that right, but like for the average person who doesn't do that or who doesn't rely on social media to either make a profit or for their job, right? Like 6 years and 8 months, there are so many things you could do during that time. Training for a triathlon, not that that's something I would ever do. Traveling, and traveling not to post pictures on Instagram because you want people to know where you're at, right? Like 6 years and 8 months. Like, just take a second to think about how long that actually is, because it's a crazy amount of time that people spend on social media. Now, 4.2 billion people worldwide use social media as of early 2021. This isn't really a surprise. We see people all across the world using social media. As I stated earlier, like, it's how people connect a lot of the times and meet people from around the world. But this is actually a 13% increase from 2020, which is honestly kind of crazy considering that we were in COVID I mean, we're still technically in COVID, but like, we spent most of 2020 in COVID. And even in 2021, we have increased the usage of social media. And that is 53% of the world's population is on social media. That's crazy. 53% of the world's population is on social media. That's absolutely ridiculous. So I talked about the things that I consider to be social media apps and what I guess I do but don't. So Americans spent 33 minutes a day on Facebook, right? Like I said, Facebook is it's still at the top of the list for average time spent daily in America, which is kind of crazy to think that Facebook is still that popular with people. Has 2.74 billion monthly users. Messenger has 1.3 billion users, and 500 million people use Facebook stories. That's crazy. Like, I've never used Facebook stories. I think it's a knockoff of other apps, but like, crazy that many people still use it. An average visitor to YouTube spends 41.9 minutes, which they in this study they set YouTube apart from Facebook. It looks like, because it's a video oriented platform. But YouTube is the second most visited site globally, right after Google. Instagram has 500 million daily active users, and the average time spent on Instagram in a day is 29 minutes. Which again, as I went back to, you see people in their highest light, you're scrolling through, and your mind is just absorbing all of that fakeness that people present, because you only see one snippet of reality that a person decides that they want to post. 22% of Americans have a Twitter account. 340 million users total, and 186 million daily active users. About 6,000 tweets every second, or close to 200 billion per year. And that's overall. That's overall. Which kind of shocks me. I figured it probably would have been more. But 6,000 tweets every second, that's a lot. That is a lot. TikTok ranks second in terms of time spent on social media. Has close to 1.29 billion monthly active users. 600 million in China, actually, and 689 million elsewhere in the world. On average, people spend 32 minutes per day on TikTok. And then the funny thing is they actually shared the social media with the least time spent per day, which is actually LinkedIn at 33 seconds. So really ironic, because like LinkedIn is a professional platform for obviously jobs and stuff like that. And so for people to be like, yeah, I don't really care, like I'll check it if I get a notification. Like, I don't even do that. Like, the last time I went on LinkedIn, I think I had like 200 notifications, because I never go on there. Like, it is what it is. And so it's interesting to see these statistics, right? And I think it really correlates to how much time that I spent on social media, right? Like TikTok, that is something that I would do before bed. Sometimes it would be over 32 minutes. I guarantee it, because you just get down a rabbit hole and you just keep scrolling and finding funny videos, and then you send them to your friends and your friends send them back, and you just keep going. So I get that, right? And it's wild because the US is not the world leader in utilizing social media. The Philippines are actually the world leader. They spend an average of 4 hours and 15 minutes a day on social media. That's absolutely wild. Japan is the lowest. They only spend 51 minutes per day. And then the US is right in the middle at 2 hours and 7 minutes a day. So interesting to kind of see that that comparison, because I thought that the US would have been a little bit higher. But one of the things that I talked about was how I felt that social media related to my mental health, and through research it has been proven that there is a correlation there, right? There is a study that links social media to depression, to anxiety, poorer sleep quality, lower self-esteem, inattention, and hyperactivity. And we see that, right? Like, one of the things that I think has happened in our lifetime, at least in my lifetime, that I don't necessarily think is great. And this isn't me coming for parents, but if the first thing that you do when your child is able is hand them an iPad or hand them a phone, like automatically they're gonna get in an unhealthy state of wanting that instant gratification of doing things, which is going to psychologically not set them up for success in the future. So please, parents, stop giving your children phones and iPads. Like, I know that it makes your life easier, but I didn't get to where I'm at in my life. My parents didn't get to where they're at in their life by parents not investing time in their kids and doing things with them, right? Like, obviously I watch TV, but like I still spend time with my parents. Like, so it's not an opportunity for you to be like, oh, here you go, let me go do my own thing while you do this, right? Like, find constructive ways to do that. Coloring, finger painting, as messy as it can be, like, get them into a creative sense. And I know there probably aren't many parents that are gonna watch this, but in the future, if you're watching this, don't set your child up for a shitty life by just giving them an iPad and saying, hey, go for it. The other thing that we saw, I think, years ago, in the success of Vine, and I think that's why TikTok has become successful, is that an average person does not have a very long attention span, right? So Vine was very set on 6 seconds. Great, I can watch a video for 6 seconds without looking away. TikTok, I can watch a video for 13 seconds, not look away, right? Like, I think that's why these platforms have so much success, is because we have developed this, like, really, this again, like they said, this hyperactivity of like, I can't focus on anything for a long amount of time without being distracted. And I think that's what social media has done to us. I think that's what what cell phones have done to us, all of these different things in my lifetime that have like gained an increasing popularity and technology, that really has made society, I think, worse off in a sense of mental health related items. The other thing in this study that talks about, you know, social media and linking it to depression is that people who actually tend to use social media more tend to be more depressed and more lonely. Meaning that if they were to decrease their social media use, there would be a qualitative shift in their well-being, which is what I'm experiencing, right? Like, I haven't talked about what's happened over the last 2 weeks, and I'm going to get to that, but I really wanted to share this research because I think it's really interesting that there is a study that has been done. There have been plenty of studies, but this study specifically, you know, focused on reducing, not necessarily eliminating, but reducing social media usage from 30 minutes a day to 10 minutes a day. And looking at participants that strictly use iPhones, and showing that at the end of that decrease, there were better mental health outcomes. You know, we see huge numbers of depression, anxiety, suicide, all of these things related to mental health increasing, you know, throughout time, because they're like, things in this world have just gotten so much heavier in terms of how much a person knows, how much a person has access to. Like I said, scrolling through Twitter, scrolling through TikTok, you see a lot of negativity of things that, you know, you don't always see, or that other generations haven't been privy to, right? Like George Floyd, for example, right? Like, when that death happened, you could find that video of him dying, him being killed on any social media platform, and you could watch that video over and over. That's not normal to sit through and watching somebody die. It's not. And before social media, the only time that you would probably potentially see this is on the news. Otherwise, you're not able to see a video of somebody being killed over and over. And that really messes with somebody's psyche. Like, it does. Whether you know it in that moment or not, like, we have become accustomed to seeing these things on social media. And I think that is why we have seen such a huge increase in mental health. I don't want to say issues. Issues is a harsh word, but, you know, mental health issues, I'm going to say it. And why we have seen an increase in suicide rates, you know, over the last 10 to 20 years, right? And a lot of people don't want to correlate those things, because it's not a fun fact. Like, it's not a fun fact at all, but like, at the end of the day, we need to do what we need to do to protect ourselves, protect our mental health. Because at the end of the day, when I was a child, when my parents were raising me, right, like, I didn't have an opportunity to go on Facebook and be like, oh, you suck because you're Republican, or you suck because you're racist, right? Like, we didn't have that. Like, so that added like sense of like, okay, I can try and change everything from behind my keyboard, and I can try and help people understand and learn from behind my keyboard. Like, that's not how humans work. I'm gonna be honest, and I know that I have people who think that that's gonna change things, and I think, yes, it's a sense of holding people accountable and giving them knowledge and information, but the likelihood of them changing their opinion over something that somebody wrote on social media probably isn't likely, right? And so these conversations we're not having in person as much. You know, maybe we are, but we're not having it with these people who we're having conversations with on social media, because we may not have a contact information outside of social media. We may not actually know them in real life. And so I think it's established a sense of keyboard warriors, unfortunately. You know, I am one of those people. I have been one of those people, and I'm trying to take a step back from that, because I know that the things that I say on social media aren't always going to change the person on the other end. I mean, even if I say that in life, that's not going to change the person on the other end either. But I also think that I grew up in a time where, especially online gaming, this is a complete tangent, but online gaming had just taken off, right? Like, I remember being in super, super toxic Halo 2 lobbies and having to defend myself plenty of times, or you know, on the flip side, attacking people because they were trash at the game. I still do that, but like, it's just not the same, because you go on any video game now, and I will say, especially Call of Duty. I don't play Call of Duty anymore, but especially Call of Duty, like, all you're gonna hear from the opposing team is homophobic slurs, racist slurs, sexist slurs, all of these things, because people think, one, that that's funny, two, that they think that you're gonna get offended by it because they're trying to get a reaction out of you, but also because they don't know how to have those conversations, or and you know, a term, be creative with their insults. Not that this is about insults, but you know, I just thought it was funny to talk about that. Anyway, yeah, so social media, I think obviously has its benefits, but I think there are a lot of things that are very harmful with social media. I mean, I only talked about mental health in regards to the things that you see, but online bullying is definitely, you know, a thing. A lot of sex trafficking is led through social media. You know, there are a lot of things that people use social media for the wrong reasons for. Now, over the last couple weeks, I want to really end this podcast talking about the things that I've noticed since not being on social media. So I already talked about my mental health improving, which has been huge. Doesn't mean that it's perfect. Doesn't mean that I don't still get into my like depressive spells, because I do. But overall, it has improved drastically. I feel like I'm in a better mood. I feel like I have more energy. You know, I'm not sitting on TikTok before I go to bed. So the bright light isn't messing with my perception to be able to fall asleep. So I feel like I'm sleeping better. And I think that I'm still working on this because I've still noticed it, but I would always like look at like even if I didn't see a notification, I would get in the habit of lifting up my phone, opening it, seeing if I had a notification, going into apps, spending some time going through it to be like, oh, did I miss a notification? But when I did, I would still find myself scrolling through apps. So picking up my phone has been a huge part of what I've noticed. Like, I'm not picking up my phone all the time now. Like, if I get a notification, it's probably because somebody sent me a text, or somebody sent me a Snapchat. And those are the notifications I get. So I'm not sitting there scrolling through my phone endlessly. I've been able to, I actually started a brand new diet this week. So I've spent more time cooking, prepping food. I've started going to the gym more. I'm spending time reading. I'm spending time actually doing productive things rather than sitting on my phone or sitting on Twitch for endless hours because I feel like I could be using my time elsewhere. So one of the things that I did notice right off the bat was still that sense of like, okay, I'm going to wake up and get in my routine. I'm going to check Twitter. I'm going to check Instagram, see what I missed. That was super tough to begin with because I would be like, okay, well, I'm bored. So let me just scroll through some things, right? And I think that's for a lot of people what they do is like feeling bored and like using that as an opportunity for entertainment. I found myself finding other ways to keep me entertained. I've been going outside a lot more, which I don't know if that's directly correlated to that or the fact that like I'm on this diet and like working out again. But I also mentioned the piece of dating apps, right? So I deleted them. I reinstalled them probably about a week ago. So took a week off of social media. I mean, I'm still 2 weeks off, but like had a week off of social media to go back on dating apps. And like, I genuinely feel more deserving. I don't know what happened with that, but I was like, great. Like I could match with any person on here and feel confident with it. Like, and I don't have that, didn't have that feeling before. Right. And I don't know if there's like a psychological connection to like Instagram or Twitter or like TikTok. Like, not sure what that looks like in my head, but like, I think that's what happened. And I think one of the big things, and I'm scrolling through an article right now, is that it says when you leave social media, you'll argue less, and that's true. I mean, I don't have anybody to argue with. I don't spend time with a lot of people in person, except for like the people I work with and then my mom. But aside from that, like I'm not finding people to like argue with. Like I'm not finding a conversation or a post on Facebook to be like, okay, let me go in on this person. Because I'm feeling feisty today, right? Like that's not where I'm at, and I think that's also helped my mental health a lot too. And so I hope out of this podcast, what you really gain is that social media is really up to what you use it for, right? Like for me, like use it as a way to find out about what's happening. Connect with some of my friends, but I can find other ways to connect with them, and really to just like remove myself from being bored. And I can find other ways to do that are more productive. And so for everyone, social media usage looks different. You're going to use it for a variety of different things. And at the end of the day, like I really encourage individuals to take a break from social media, whether it be a week, whether it be a couple days. And I promise you that you're going to see an improvement in your mental health. You're going to see an improvement in other aspects of your life because you're not spending 145 minutes a day scrolling through social media. Again, 6 years and 8 months of our lives on average we spend on social media. That's a lot. I want those 6 years back. I spend so much time on social media and I'm at the point of like, is it really worth it at the end of the day? Like, I don't know. So I hope you take away something from this podcast. I appreciate you if you've made it through this far. And if you could like, subscribe, comment, and share. Comment down below if you've taken some steps to reduce your social media intake, because I'm genuinely curious. With that being said, thanks so much for listening. This has been For the Love of Humankind, and we will see you in the next episode. Have a good weekend.